Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time. If you are calling in for the first time and you like the things that we discuss here on these weekly calls, I would hope that you would be kind enough to click the subscribe button and share our calls with other like-minded individuals. I don't know how long this call is going to be today. We're getting blown up over here. As we get closer to the drop-dead date for the reinstitution of the dinar, the traffic is just very difficult to deal with. As a matter of fact, there are a number of individuals that have called over the last few days. I just have been able to get back to you, but I'll get back on the phone as soon as this call is over and assist you in every way that I can. So let's go ahead and get into what we're going to discuss today. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Of course, the most relevant piece of information would be a window for the potential reinstitution of the dinar in country, because that's what starts everything. That's the catalyst for everything to come. We were very hopeful that we'd see the reinstitution in around mid-August. That did not happen, and a lot of that had to do with ferreting out a lot of the corruption that's still going on. But let's go ahead and get into what we wanted to discuss with you today. First, let's talk about what I believe are the three issues that have a direct effect on when the dinar reinstitutes. The first argument that people make for why this has not occurred as of now and why it may take some time is the money supply. They argue that there's just too much dinar out there. I understand that argument, but I don't really buy it. The collection of the zeros has substantially reduced the money supply. As a matter of fact, they've just recovered 450 billion dinar that had been looted. The deletion of the zeros is critical as well, because they're going to continue to collect the zeros until such time as they're ready to reinstitute, at what time they'll complete the project to delete the zeros. The deletion of the zeros dramatically reduces the money supply. It turns a 10,000 dinar note into 10 dinar and a 25,000 dinar note into 25 dinar. So I don't really buy the money supply argument, again, because it's based on a provisional 3-0 currency count, which of course will not be in force and in effect when the currency reinstitutes. The second argument is the economic growth argument. It's the chicken and the egg argument. They can't reinstitute until they have substantial economic growth, but you can just as equally argue that they need the revaluation of their own currency in order to stimulate economic growth. The World Trade Organization is offering its assistance to help Iraq with economic growth. A number of global NGOs are also offering their assistance as well. But again, a lot of the growth in Iraq is going to deal with international contracts, and that's going to require that they have their own global currency. So I understand, again, the economic growth argument, but I don't see how economic growth can be attained short of a reinstituted global currency. The third argument, and that's the most important one in my view and the one that the country is still working on, is the issue of corruption. Right now, over the last maybe 60 days, we've seen literally hundreds of arrests of corrupt officials, the closure of corrupt exchange companies. Iraq's the CBI is working with Interpol for the repatriation of smuggled funds, and again, the arrest of other individuals. a lot of people are all of a sudden deciding it's time to leave Iraq, so that's a good sign as well. There was recently a video that came out, and you see this from time to time, talking about why the Iraqi dinar is a scam. And this is the kind of talk that's been going on for a long time. It's understandable to the extent that it's been 20 years since basically the fall of Saddam and the creation of the program rate 3 provisional currency. But I think the way to respond to this continued argument is sort of a Socratic approach. Rather than saying, you're wrong and this is why, you respond to that with a series of questions. So here are some questions I would ask people that believe that the dinar is a scam. Question: was the Kuwaiti dinar a scam? Question: if dinar is a scam, why is the nation de-dollarizing? Why is the nation involved in very important and complicated banking reforms? If dinar is a scam, why are all the central banks in the world purchasing and holding Iraqi dinar? If the Iraqi dinar is a scam, why did George Bush issue Executive Order 13303 to allow citizens as well as organizations to invest in the Iraqi dinar? Why has the United States government allowed companies to sell the dinar to American citizens in exchange for the U.S. dollar? Why has Iraq been invited to join the BRICS nations and the World Trade Organization? Serves no purpose if they don't have their own functional global currency. Why is the CBI released statements about printing the new category smaller notes? Why has the CBI of Iraq been purchasing substantial amounts of gold other than to back their own currency? Why is Iraq spending billions of dollars with multiple companies to establish global contracts for the building of their infrastructure? Why is Iraq's Prime Minister, Soudani, and Iraq repeatedly telling their citizens that their currency will have real value, that they need to hold on to it? Now, what does real value mean? At a minimum, real value would have to mean at or slightly a premium over the U.S. dollar in terms of purchasing power. But the term real value, not purchasing power, but real value, to me, suggests a return to at least the rate that they had when they went into a program rate, which is $3.22. Now, it is true that the Iraqi dinar is a quote-unquote speculative investment. But the best speculative investments are the ones that have a low upfront risk and a high back-end reward. And I can think of no investment that meets that definition better than the Iraqi dinar. You could purchase 1 million Iraqi dinar for about $1,000. Now, you could turn right around and sell that currency on eBay or to someone else for 75 cents on the dollar. So you purchased 1 million Iraqi dinar for $1,000. You could turn around and sell it for $750, meaning you've only got 250 hard dollars in the investment. The dinar comes back at 10 cents, you just made $100,000 on a $750 investment. If it comes back at $1, you've made $1 million on a $750 investment, basically. $250 investment. If it comes back at $3.22, you're looking at $32 million. And if Iraq becomes a failed state and the dinar is worth nothing, you lost $1,000. Is $1,000 upfront cost with a hard dollar investment of $250 given the market to sell it Could be as much as $30 million at $3.22. It's a speculative investment, but again, very low risk, very high reward. And remember, we are transitioning globally from fiat-based to Basel-compliant currencies. Right now, we're at Basel IV. The extrapolated Basel IV compliant rate of the dinar based on its known natural resources and now its ability to bring those resources to market is $4.85. But let's just say we get $1 for the dinar. Every $1,000 investment you made is worth $1 million. Is it speculative? Yes. Could you lose your money? Yes. But is $1,000 investment worth anywhere between $1 million and the Basel IV compliant rate of $48 million? I think so. Let's take a look at the budget expenditures because they're supposed to begin within days. Now, Iraq right now has approximately $150 billion in debt. They have about $115 to $120 billion in USD reserve. So with that reserve, they're purchasing gold. They've got to fund a 3-year budget at an estimated cost of $200 billion. They've got to fund the international contracts for infrastructure. Despite the increased sale of oil and the price of a barrel at present, that's simply not going to be enough money to do everything they've basically said that they're going to do in this 3-year budget based on the existing debt and the amount of expenditures in that budget, at least the ones that we're told are in there. So the only solution to the budgetary shortfalls pursuant to the expenditures is the reinstatement of their currency. That's the math. That doesn't mean it's going to happen on a given day, that what the rates, we don't know any of that. But the math is clear. They cannot function with the 3-year budget utilizing the U.S. dollar solely. The U.S. dollar needs to be a reserve currency. They need to function with their own currency. The last thing I'll mention here is the American ambassador to Iraq recently released a statement, and he said, Iraq must return to a legal system now. Now, the United States, frankly, has been dragging its feet for years, but now they're pushing. They're pushing. Now, what does the ambassador mean when he says return to a legal system now? It means they have to end the multiple currency system. They have to stop relying on the USD or any other currency. They have to begin to rely on their own currency. They can't function in the multiple currency system where they have an official rate and then they have a parallel rate, because the spread between those two is where the corruption is, and they need to stop the corruption. And if they have a Basel IV compliant currency, they're looking at a minimum of $3.22 and close to $5 in terms of a value. That resolves all of their issues. They will be part of the legal financial global system. And this is where we're heading. I know we're all frustrated because this has taken so much longer than we thought it would. The last peg in this really isn't the math that I went over. It's really the corruption. It's really Iran. It's really the corrupt officials. And frankly, despite the fact that this is frustrating, we have to understand, we have to look no further than our own country to see where there's lots of money involved. There's always going to be corrupt individuals. And our country has its share. A lot of that's probably going to be dealt with as well. Now, it's been 15 years. The Trusts Unlimited has been working with Dinarians and those that have some of the other currencies as well. We knew that the average Dinarian, since we got involved in the currencies ourselves and did a little research, was basically a middle-class, hard-working American who for the first time in their life was going to be in a daunting position of having to manage a substantial amount of money. So we decided to put a program together to assist you. We're now in a high-tax, high-surveillance state. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. But there are things we can do once we achieve this wealth to protect it. And the first thing you need to do, aside from the purchase of these various currencies, and before I continue, let's talk a little bit about some of the other currencies. The dong, the rupiah, the zim, all of those currencies have potential. I think the dong is the one currency that might flip shortly after the dinar. It's an interesting currency. Vietnam doesn't have the wealth of Iraq, but then basically no country does. They've been in a program rate for decades. They've been able to function with a program rate. But now that we're transitioning really to Basel IV compliance, the beauty of the Basel IV compliance is instead of the currency being based on an arbitrary valuation from the various central banks, there's going to be a fixed method of determining the value of one currency against another. So you know that the currency is a valid currency. You know that the country hasn't intentionally devalued it in order to corner the global trade market. They're going to have to deal on the up and up. This is going to really hurt a country like China that's been operating for 2 decades on a grossly devaluated currency in order to corner the trade market. But as most centralized economies go, so has China. China's actually in economic straits right now, despite all of the things that they're doing, and they're working really, really hard to undercut the United States in every way possible. But again, the currency has no real value. They've devalued it. They have other issues as well. And unfortunately, that's simply the case with the USD. We have an administration that's printed $7 trillion in the last 2.5 years. And the result, of course, is not only inflation, which is, of course, loss of purchasing power, but globally the dollar has lost its value against other currencies. Now we see, as a matter of fact, yesterday the BRICS nations currency is out there, and it's clear their objective is to replace the U.S. dollar as the number one world's reserve currency. So, this administration is just like Nero. They're fiddling as Rome burns. And it's unfortunate to watch this. And, of course, when we go to the bank to do our exchange, the U.S. dollars that we will get will be losing value. Of course, because you have dinar, you're going to have a lot more dollars to work with. But you're going to need to transition into other areas to protect the wealth that you just acquired. And I say just, some of us have been involved in this for 20 years. So when people say this is an overnight thing, no, it's not an overnight thing. When they flip the switch, it's overnight, but there's been a lot of suffering and sacrifice for a lot of people for a much longer period of time than they thought, waiting for this to happen. I hear really sad stories all the time about people that were over-leveraged and got themselves into a little trouble, and then they're afraid to part with the currency because their fear is they'll sell their currency and then the next day the thing will revalue and they'll just feel even worse. But let's hope none of that happens. Let's hope we're very close to the end. But to assist those of you who for the first time will have a substantial amount of wealth to manage, we have established our Family Asset Protection Trust package. And I want to review with you basically the benefits that it provides, because these benefits are available and should be taken advantage of by every American citizen, whether they have currencies, whether they have any other asset that they think is going to appreciate substantially, or whether they simply want to be left alone and protect whatever it is that they have. By establishing this package of trust, you're going to preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within this trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth, your actual holdings. So if you're an individual that has currencies that are going to appreciate substantially, by assigning the currencies to the trust, when they revalue within the trust, no one will know that you actually acquired this wealth. Now, of course, they may get an idea that that's the case because, your lifestyle will reflect this newfound wealth. But again, what you possess will be sealed. The second reason you'd want to establish this trust is it will allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit, which, of course, is time-consuming, expensive, and, frankly, frustrating because it came along at the time that these currencies are revalued, and you have many other important things to do. But if you've assigned these currencies to the trust, the revaluation will occur within the trust. There's two advantages to that. One, there's less than a 15% chance of an audit. The revaluation would occur within the trust. But even if the IRS spits out an audit, they can't do a 6-year audit because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust is if you, like many of our clients, plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. If you're gifting to people that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them their respective amount of the USD after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give any of these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through the specially designed gift subtrust that we've established. So if you have individuals that are disabled, perhaps they're young, inexperienced, you're concerned about giving them a lump sum, by gifting through the subtrust, not only will you be able to avoid the federal gift tax, but you will then be in a position to manage, invest, and distribute the post-RV lump sum for their benefit. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. Probate is a process that can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But if anyone challenges that estate, it can be tied up for years and even decades. And we've got clients that have had their estates tied up for decades. That's why they came to us for help. And when that happens, your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance. Then there's the federal estate tax, which is the tax that's assessed on the transfer of your estate to heirs. Under current law, the federal estate tax above approximately $10 million can be taxed as much as 65%. However, if you've established our trust, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of the estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. Fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for the asset protection benefits that it provides both pre- and post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to our trust. So let's say you purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000. Transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides they want to sue you. Well, this plaintiff can't sue you for $25 million. The only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000 because that's what the value of the currency was when you transferred it out of title. So there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have a family package of trusts, and basically it would work this way. Use the same example. Purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The currencies are assigned to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger a primary home, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is understandably want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs will be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you're merely the beneficiary. Well, what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair and replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident. The plaintiff, therefore, has no standing to pursue them. So the trust package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will not sink. One last thing I'll mention. The United States government at present, the bunch in Washington right now, are pushing hard for the central bank digital currency. And, of course, the central bank digital currency will have a credit score system, meaning that by creating the central bank digital currency, they will be in possession of the currency, meaning they will be able to dictate your use of, quote-unquote, their currency. There's a way to get around that. States right now are creating digital state currencies. So if you establish our trust and the central bank digital currency does come into fruition, you would immediately establish bank accounts in those states that have a state digital currency. Now, it is a digital currency, but it's not a central bank digital currency with a credit score system. So you would be able to operate with an ATM card and a credit card utilizing that state digital currency. You would have exempted yourself from the central bank digital currency, and your transactions, because they're occurring within the trust, will be private. Now, these are the reasons that you would establish this trust if you have currencies, but these are the reasons that you would establish this trust if you're an American citizen who rejects the high tax, high surveillance state being created centrally, and you simply want to be left alone. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and will have control over the other sub-trusts, one optional gift sub-trust, which can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this trust package was the simplification of a trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But by simplifying this package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. That's not possible. We have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which cost would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest The only proviso is once the dinar revalues in country, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone with currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust enforced pre-RV should be able to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place for all of the reasons that we've discussed here. Now, we'll be going to a Q&A in just a moment, but before I do, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and our trust product. One thing I will mention, too, as I said, I received a video about why the dinar is a scam, but I noticed in some of the comments it's most likely either our competitors or some clod that has nothing better to do that said, oh, so you're peddling trusts. And my answer to this guy is hell yes, and I'm proud of it. Our Family Asset Protection Trust package will do more for the average American citizen than anything I can think of, given the situation we're in right now. We live in a free market capitalistic society, and quote-unquote sales is what makes the world go round. So I don't really understand where these clowns come from. I used to respond to them, but, it's a waste of time to talk to idiots or competitors that are just trying to troll us. So, again, very proud of the trust package that we have. I think we've done an extraordinarily good job at providing an incredibly sophisticated product at an affordable price. And again, we make no apology for it. As a matter of fact, we're quite proud of it. Now, our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for 40 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, we have 80 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I don't know that any of the clowns or the trolls that chirp on our site know what the hell they're talking about. Now, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's precisely at those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number two reason for the loss of wealth in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number one loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So I am going to go ahead and open the Q&A here. While I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. Again, if the things we've discussed here are of interest to you, I strongly suggest you get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your Family Asset Protection Trust package. But again, you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the currencies. Contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Again, contact us by phone or email if you'd like to get our initial no-obligation package. We'll get it out to you. While it does contain everything you need, if you wish to proceed, you're under no obligation to do so. Please review the package and contact us if you have any questions. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Praveen from New York. Is it true that Iraq had 30 days from July 26th for the budget to be implemented and for them to start spending?
That, as a matter of fact, I was looking into that. That was the time frame that was given in order for them to release the funds for the projects. That would be in about, that would be about 2 or 3 days, so it should be this week. Of course, Iraq has a long, long track record of missing drop-dead dates, but you are correct. That is when the release of funds for the projects is supposed to begin.
Okay, so that means could the revaluation happen then or later on? Or
It could, but it doesn't have to.
Okay. All right, thank you.
In my opinion, it could and it should, but it doesn't have to. I know that it's contradictory, but it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Bye-bye. Remember, Iraq does have between $115 and $120 billion of reserve currency. I'm sure they prefer not to utilize that, but if they will, I think that if they have to, I think that they will. Our next caller is area code 805. That's 805. Go ahead. Hello, 805. Are you there? Newberry Park, California. Are you there? Okay, no response. We'll move on. Our next caller here is area code 619. That's 619.
Hey, good morning, Jim. It's Eddie. How are you?
Hey, Eddie. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Hey, Jim, you had mentioned something about a couple of states or whatever. Someone had called in a week or so ago about states not recognizing irrevocable trusts. And one state in particular I'd like to know about is New Jersey. Are you familiar with that? Did you get that answer?
Yes, I did. I spoke to the lawyers, and they said there are a number of states that don't, in other words, it's not in their law, and they don't produce their own irrevocable trust, but an irrevocable trust from another state can operate within that state because it's a common law trust.
It's a common law, okay.
Common law trust does not operate on the statutory laws of any given state. It operates in all states. It's got universal provisions. So the fact that Florida or New Jersey or a given state does not have their own laws pertaining to their own irrevocable trust does not mean that an irrevocable trust, a common law or irrevocable trust owned by a citizen of another state or even that state can't function. They can function in those states.
Awesome. Hey, Jim, let me see if I can word this right. When you have your trust and let's say I die, okay, what do I need to set up along with that trust, say like a living trust, to disperse it in the way that I want it to be dispersed, or would I just word this particular trust the way I want it to be? I mean, I know you have beneficiaries, but let's say I wanted stipulations in there for certain things to happen. Where could I put that information inside the trust?
You can provide additional instructions in a trust. Theoretically, the way the irrevocable and even the revocable trust works is even though they're irrevocable, they're amendable, meaning So long as you, a settler, are alive, you can amend the terms, add the terms,
Right.
like the things you're talking about here. It's when you pass away that it becomes unamendable. Whatever you have put in place when you pass away, the trustee is obligated to honor that. Now, there are extreme situations where if all parties agree to make a change, all parties agree, you could do it, because theoretically there'd be no, if everyone sits down and agrees to making a specific change, theoretically that can be done. But in general, once the settler or the grantor, in the case of a revocable trust, passes away, whatever the stipulations are, they have to be abided by. Now, after the reinstatement of the dinar in country, our lawyers will be on the call, because in addition to your trust, we still want to set up, in certain situations, in the states you live in, wills, powers of attorney, medical directives, things of that nature. So that's still something that will be done in concert with your trust. But again, we're reserving those discussions till after the reinstitution of the dinar.
Gotcha. Hey, one last question. What is the email that you want us to use when we want to request a subtrust and title it for the home or whatever? What's that email you want us to use?
Yes, I want you. It's trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC, at gmail.com.
So just a regular email. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And
Thanks so much, Jim.
If it doesn't get to the person immediately, it's supposed to get to, because I see everything, I will route it to the person.
Yeah, and hey, just real quick, Jim, to give you a little kudos, man. You guys have been awesome. Your service has been awesome, and what you guys provide is excellent. So for whoever thinks that, you're just peddling the trust, yeah, they're uninformed, very much so. So thank you, buddy.
Yeah. We every once in a while I get into it with these guys, and I shouldn't do it. It's a mistake. I'm Greek. I can't help it. So
there's an old saying that goes around sometimes, says you can't fix stupid, and I think that's where they fall under. So
yeah. I talked to one guy. I said I'm a Golden Glove boxer and a brown belt in karate. Name the time and the place. Your move.
I'm sure he didn't respond, right?
No, that is a matter. Yeah, he was a fart in the wind.
Yeah, I bet. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you.
Yeah, let me tell you one more quick story. This is a true story.
Sure.
I don't like Wells Fargo. I never have. And years ago, I was in my late 20s, and I was doing estate work. That's when I first got started, and I was working with a legal firm. And this banker at Wells Fargo kept trying to proselytize our clients, and we were setting up irrevocable trusts, and we were doing all kinds of sophisticated work for him, and he was trying to explain to him that their trust was better because it was cheaper, and he kept, and theoretically, that's a ethical violation, because his legal team needs to draft the trust, and lawyers aren't supposed to undercut each other. It's illegal. So I got so mad, I went into the bank, and I went right up to the guy, and I introduced myself, and I said, I'm going to be waiting for you in the parking lot at 5 o'clock. So at 5 o'clock, the guy comes out with 2 security guards escorting him to his car, and I said, I'm going to be here every day till you and I have a man-to-man discussion. So I never went back after that, but he never bothered us after that. So that was when I was younger and foolish. I wouldn't do that today, but it's unfortunate that some people, just need a little bit more clarification,
Yeah, you can't fix stupid, so there you go, Jim. Yeah. All right, man. All right.
You take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
You too.
Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma.
Doug, how are you doing, my friend?
I've been better, but I want to touch on this issue about the BRICS. Today is the second day that it's been in progress. Yesterday they made it clear that they're in no hurry to do anything about the BRICS currency as far as either valuation of it or coming out with it. But I think it's a smart move because they don't have a system of settlement yet that is going to be able to allow the member countries to do it. I mean, when you think about it, the Russian ruble, if they're doing business with Argentina, the Argentines don't want Russian rubles. They still want dollars. So I don't think that the statements being made by the goofballs on the internet that the whole thing is going to happen just because this meeting started on the 22nd, and the whole thing, I mean the Iraqi reval, is going to happen based on the fact that there is now a new world reserve currency. Also, they didn't even speculate or list, I should say, the number of countries that want to be a member. They just indicated that there were 20-plus countries that do want to be members. So I think that's important. So I think we're going to have some time with this BRICS issue, probably through most of 2024 as this unfolds. Also, last week you were talking to a guy in Florida, and you touched on it briefly about the state not recognizing the trust. And I know that you just made that clear on a previous call, but one of the things that was part of the guy's questions, which didn't get answered, was the taxation of the revalued currencies that are in an irrevocable trust but not taken out of the trust. Is it true that the trust in and of itself can conduct its own business? And let's say that, for example, the trust bought an asset. The trust owns that asset. That asset increases in value. Let's just make it very easy. Let's say it has the trust invested in some CDs, and you get, just for grins, you get 5%. Is it true that the income derived from that investment that is held by the trust is taxable on a yearly basis? Is that correct?
Yes, it is, unless it's distributed to the settler, in which case the settler would then pay the tax on it.
Yeah, but one way or another, the increase in the value of the asset is going to be paid, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the revalued asset of the dinars will be subject, hopefully, like you said previously, if they follow their own IRS guidelines, hopefully that revalued asset won't be taxed as long as the increased value of that asset remains within the irrevocable trust. Is that
right?
Correct?
Yes, we were talking about 980.82 referred to the profit from the exchange as cap gain. Section 643A and B suggests to us that the gain from the profit from the exchange of the currency within an irrevocable trust is tax deferred. But we've also said that we are not going to rely on that. We are going to try to get a letter ruling from the IRS directly, specifically on that. But if we don't have time, because let's say the revaluation happened on September 26th, well, theoretically, taxes would be due on October 15th. So that's
right.
not going to be in time to get written confirmation of our interpretation of the relevant statute. Therefore, we would be left to pay the ordinary income tax and file for a refund citing 980.82 and Section 643A and B of the Code.
Very good. So that's 643 A and B?
643 A and B.
And what is the provision? What would be the provisions is there a provision in the code that basically that could potentially define this as long-term tax gain versus just ordinary income?
Well,
if in fact we did owe some taxes.
Well, the other one that's pretty clear is publication 525 of the code. But United States versus Caterpillar, in that case, they said that the IRS will not be bound by the publications because they're subject to reinterpretation. Not just that, the the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is such a one-off. It's just an outlier. And because of the amount of money that's involved, the IRS can't wait to get their mitts on it. So, unless we get something in writing specifically dealing with the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, unfortunately, we have to assume ordinary income, pay the ordinary income tax, file for a refund. Because if we don't do that, and whether we believe it's right or not, and the IRS says it's ordinary income, you're looking at that tax plus 100% penalty, and that'll wipe you out.
Right. It will. Yes. Plus the state tax that you're going to owe as well. And one last question. You touched on this last week about the timing of your increase of the value if you go ahead and make the exchange. And I'm going to take an arbitrary value between $1 and $5. So let's say it comes out at 1, and in the time frame between now and the end of September, the dinar fluctuates. So you think that, okay, $3 is good. So you make your exchange at $3. But just because of the velocity of money flowing in for the speculation on the currency, say by the end of September, the dinar is worth $5. You don't pay tax on $5.
It doesn't affect you at all.
Okay.
You're going to be taxed on the profit that you earned when you made the exchange, or not having made the exchange, whatever the value was at the end of the quarter. So let's say you had 10 million dinar, you exchanged half of it at $3, and then at the end of the quarter, the other half is sitting there, and now it's at $5. Well, you're going to be taxed at the $5 rate on what you didn't exchange.
Right. And that's the sad thing, because there are so many individuals that I know that basically say, well, I'm just going to turn the money in when I need it, and I'll pay the tax on that. And I've told them that
988E2, the last sentence, this is what you need to say to them. Read 988E2. The last sentence says that if the profit that you would enjoy from the exchange exceeds $200, you must pay the tax. They're not just saying you got to pay the tax on the gain. They're saying the taxable amount is based on when it appreciates, not when you exchange it. So when you go to exchange it, you'll pay the tax. But if you don't exchange it and you're sitting on it at the end of a quarter, in 15 days, you owe, worst case scenario, ordinary income on which you didn't exchange. And if you're, God forbid, in California, that's 39.4, add 5% millionaire surtax, and 13% state tax. In other words, they not only wiped you out, you actually owe them money. You don't have a penny. You owe them money. It's not like you have less after you pay the tax. After you pay the tax, that's 100 cents on the dollar, and you still owe them more than that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have relatives in California, and I was just following some bills going through the California legislature. They want to raise that income tax to 14.7%.
What a shame.
Can you imagine?
They destroyed the state.
They're going
because
to. Anyway,
all of the movers and shakers are going to leave, and the only people left are going to be the ones with their hand out. It's a shame. It's a shame. But maybe this is what has to happen to fix things.
Well, 23% of the people living in California were not born in the United States. Not just in California, but born in the United States. So 25% of the people living there came from someplace else, and they're on the dole. So it's going to be really tough for that state. Anyway, thank you very much.
Sure.
Can't wait till next week. We're getting closer to the end of September, and if it doesn't happen then, actually we'd be in better shape, because then we wouldn't have to do anything until January 15th.
When we get into September, my thing is wait till October.
That's right.
What's another
October.
30 days, 14 days, 2 weeks? What the hell? Wait till October, and then we don't have to worry about anything till January 15th.
I know you said that historically April and September are the months. I don't know. Do you think that has any validity on Iraq?
January's been a month too. Countries run on calendar fiscal years. That's why that happens. I think they try to time it. But if Trump was in office, he'd say, oh, no, you're not going to reval in September. We're going to sit on that thing till October. This people that are in there now, they just as soon stick it to us at the end of a quarter and hope we don't pay the tax so they can have it all. I'm sorry to feel that way, but I've been watching these people for 2.5 years. They're kleptocrats. That's just who they are.
Well, maybe the one saving grace is there's probably a lot of them that have dinars as well, and they want their money just as much as we do. So hopefully there's a little bit of a braking system on their thought process there.
Well, yeah, but they have 6 ways from Sunday to make money, So you're right. If they could figure out a way for us not to get ours and them to get theirs, believe me, they'd do it and they'd sleep like a baby. It's just who they are. I hate to be so negative about it, but I was born and raised in that area. I know these people, and it's a shame. We really need to take a flamethrower to D.C. and start all over in some ways.
So, take care, my friend.
Okay. You take care, too. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Well, Doug was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to our call. The things we've discussed are of interest to you. I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. We'll be happy to assist you in every way if you decide to proceed. Everything you need is in the package. Our next call, of course, will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye now.